Hello guys, welcome back. Hope you have gone through my first video where I have explained on continuous integration. Okay, so in the first part we saw how to create job in Jenkins, build the project and generate the binary artifacts or images and store into the dockerhub registry. Now we'll see how to containerize the application and how to orchestrate it. Okay, so let's start. So I'm in my project directory where I have kept all the required definition files for the Kubernetes. Before that, let me show you one thing. Okay, so okay, so I'm going to show you this Kubernetes orchestration. For that, these are the objects we're going to use, like namespace, deployment, replica, config map, secret, persistent volume, and service. So hope you guys all are aware about these objects of Kubernetes. If you are not sure, then before moving to and creating any project, make sure that you have some basic ideas on this and how to create and how to write the YAML file. Okay, let's start. So let's first start with the namespace. Okay, so namespace is something whenever you're creating a project, right? If you're working multiple projects, in your company, like for HR applications, finance application, or kind of project networking application, you want to segregate those in a different workspace or different namespace. For that, we have to create a separate namespace, and all related applications or services or projects or objects we need to create into that. So it will make the application, and for managing it will be very easy, right? During the production issues or troubleshooting or managing, really it will help you to understand and go to the particular namespace and find the your applications. Okay, so let's start. I have created a definition file for namespace. Here is the definition file. Let me show you how it looks like. Okay, so it's very simple. I have created namespace, and this YAML file, actually, if you know what is YAML file, so YAML is known as yet another markup language, YAML. Okay, so the YAML file starts with 3 dashes. Okay, and then you have to add the code accordingly based on the tools or the technology you are using. So here we are using Kubernetes. For Kubernetes, we are going to add some definitions or some object into that. So here I'm going to use the API version, that versions for this particular kind of particular object. That's the v1 kind namespace. Like that you have to write. Okay, so I'm not going to give more time on this to explaining each and every part, but I'll show you how to create all these. I hope you guys understand the objects, each object of the Kubernetes. Okay, now okay, so how to create this namespace? Okay, there is a command. So before that, let me tell you, for that what you need, first of all you have to install Docker and Kubernetes in your machine. If you don't have installed, just go through the internet and see how the Docker and Kubernetes can be installed. Here I have just created a small cluster using Minikube. Okay, one master and node setup I have done, and there I'm going to demonstrate the project. And I have installed kubectl, the command line tool for Kubernetes, to create and manage the Kubernetes orchestration, right? So let me use the kubectl. So what's the command to create the namespace? First let me see what are the namespaces are there. Okay, so it's kubectl get namespaces. So here you can see default, Docker, and all are these system related namespaces. By default, if you don't specify anything while creating any object, that will be created under the default namespace. I don't want to create my applications or my object under the default. I'll show you how to create a separate namespace and add all your projects or objects into that namespace. Okay, so there is a command called kubectl create. Okay, I have to pass the -f signal here, and then just give the definition file, right? Once you give it, it will show you. See, it says the namespace is created. Now what we can do, let's see whether the namespace is created or not. So what is the command for that? That command you can use kubectl get namespace. So here the kubectl, actually you can say either kubectl or kubectl, or how you can spell, it's up to you. Okay, but mostly most of the guys, they spell it as kubectl. Okay, now you can see here, see, our dev namespace is created and it's active 15 seconds ago, right? Now what we can do, our namespace is created. Now we can create the config map and secrets, so that we can follow the things, namespaces, config map and secrets. So deployment we can use after creating all these items. Okay, let's start the config map. The config map for the command, same command you can use, kubectl, okay, create -f, create the config map, right? So better, let me show you what it contains actually. Okay, so vi enter. So here is the config map look like. So what it contains actually, it contains the environment variables, the global variables. It contains the environment variable of the database, what variables we are going to use while creating the container during the pod creation or container creation. So here we don't call as container. In Kubernetes we call it as pod. We are going to create pod. Okay, so the pod, what is pod actually? Pod is an object of Kubernetes. It contains one or more than containers inside it. So pod also contains the container inside. Okay, so you can see here the API version v1, the kind configure, and it holds the environment variable, has the environment variable name and the values. Right, now let me create it. Kubectl create -f, then definition file name. So my config map is created. Similarly, let me create the secrets. So what is secret? In Kubernetes, secret holds your confidential informations, the data which has very critical, which you don't want to share to the outside the world. Nobody you don't want to share the information with anybody. You want to keep it secret. This data is very secret. So I just opened config map. Let me open the vi secrets, right? Okay, secret. So these data should be all are encrypted. So this contains the sensitive informations like your passwords, your banking informations, or whatever you feel like this should be sensitive. This should be encrypted. Okay, should not be visible to your naked eyes. So here encrypted, I have I have used some algorithms to encrypt this value and put the encrypted value here, right? And this is how you have to write. Here you will see I have used namespace colon dev. That means whatever I'm going to use, that will be created under dev namespace. Okay, let me create it. Similarly, you have to use kubectl create -f and the definition file name. It is secret. So now the secret is created. So what we'll do next, let's create the persistent volume. Okay, so our persistent volume needs to be created. So what is persistent volume? I have created a persistent volume for that. Let me show you. So Here, if you see here, I have created two objects in put two objects definitions in one definition file, one YAML file. One is persistent volume and the other one is persistent volume claim. So the volume whatever you are going to create, that has to be claimed by some pod, by some other application, because if you're the volume whatever you are specifying, if you don't use that, then there's no usage, right? Then that's no meaning of creating the persistent volume. And here I am just going to claim here the storage. I'm giving the capacity of 2 GB, 2 gigabyte, and here I'm going to same amount of 2 gigabyte. I'm going to 2 gigabyte. I'm going to claim it. And here you can see the access modes rewrite, and there are lots of options which I cannot explain in one video. It's Kubernetes itself actually a little complicated, and it takes more time you to understand and go through, minimum 2 to 3 months of time if you dedicatedly give your time to learn and study yourself. Okay, hope before doing any project you should go through and learn something in the Kubernetes. Let me create it. Q control create, same thing, -f, and then definition file name. So that is mysql -pb.yaml. Enter. See, here we created two files, two objects been created, volume, persistent volume and persistent volume claim, right? So now we almost created what we created. We created namespace. Let me show you. So we created namespace, we created config map, we created secret, created persistent volume. What we left? We left with deployment, replica, and service. So let's start with deployment definition file. So if you see here, I have created two deployment files. Okay, one is for Tomcat web services, another one is for MySQL DB. So Tomcat web service, that means I have created two deployments, means I am going to create two separate pods for this project. Okay, one is Tomcat web server, another one is MySQL DB, right? So let me explain one pod, and then that will be better to create. So vi, if you just open this deployment file, I have again added here two objects. One service here I have added the API version v1 and kind is service, right? And here is the service name, the node port. The service is which you can use to connect the applications from your host machine or from your laptop, from your desktop. Anyone can, the user from the outside, you can connect through this node port service to the container, to the application inside the container. Okay, so there are lots of options. Again, it will take more time if I keep explaining each and every part, so you can understand this, can go through and understand. If not, you can, I'll share my email ID, and if you need any help, you can email me. I can explain you. I'll try to explain, and I'll try to explain everything. If you want, if you really want to learn something, then just do email me. Okay, so let's go to the, that you saw the services, right? Now we are going to create the deployment. So before starting the deployment and pod, I'm going to starting the services. Before starting the deployment, we should start the services. So I have put the service from the front. So the service will be created first and the deployment. Okay, so if you see the deployment here, actually we given the real object definitions and the specification for the container or the pod. Okay, so if you see here, the kind is deployment, and what are the again namespace will be always dev, because we are going to put all these objects in one namespace. So the labels and selectors being used here, so there are again labels and selectors being used, and here the templates and metadata with the information about the data, and the labels, selector and labels being used, because that's are very useful features in Kubernetes to identify the pods, and because the pod, whenever the multiple pods, a multiple container having pod, and one node having multiple pods, how they interact to each other, how the Kubernetes understand what are the pods to create and what are the pods to contact each other, right? So we can use this label and selector to identify and make these pods to talk each other. Okay, so now so the project is here, you can see here. So just think about the specification. So this specification, I have given the containers, the container name I have given as Tomcat Web, and the emails, this is where you have to be give more focus, right? This image, you remember, this image was created during the continuous integration in our first part, right? In first video we had created the images out of the Docker file. So these images are stored in the dockerhub registry, right? So where it is stored, let me show that. See, this is the dockerhub registry, and in my registry, if you go there, okay, repository, the repository, you can see here login by WAP and MySQL, two images we had created, okay, in the first part of our lecture. So now we can create, well, okay, our image is ready, right? So let me create the pods out of this container, okay, out of this deployment, sorry. So now we have our deployment definition files ready, and now let's create the deployments. So for deployments, we have to use, instead of create, we can use, you have to use apply, keep control apply -f and the definition file name. See, it's created two objects, one is service, another one is the deployment. So this is the service. One thing I forgot to tell you, here, if you just let me open this, there I had used replica, right? Here is the replicas. So here I have given replicas 2. What does this mean, right? In replicas, when you specify replicas in deployment, when you create the deployment, it will create two similar pods, means two identical pods of that same application. That means we'll have now two pods of Tomcat Web services inside. Two pods will be running at the same time, right? So deployment is very powerful in Kubernetes because it's running in the it normally runs in the production environment to make your applications always available running. So in case of these replicas and the deployment, if you kill or terminate, or due to some problem your pod is died or terminated, right, immediately the Kubernetes will bring up another pod. Suppose you have given replicas 2, means there should always be two pods. If one pod dies, immediately another pod will be created within fractions of seconds, it will be created, right? So all these being taken care by the Kubernetes very carefully, okay? So now our Tomcat pods created, let's create the database pods, right? Now same thing you have to use here, keep control apply -f on the file name, enter. Here also it's created. Now let's see what are the things so far we have created, right? So what is the commands? So we have to use keep control get all. You have to specify the namespace, because if you don't specify the namespace, what will happen? It will display the information from the default namespace, okay? See what we created now. These are the details we created. We created pod, you can see the pod. We created the pod, we created the service, we created the deployment, we created the replica set. Apart from this also we created persistent volume claim, config map, and secret, also namespace, right? So in this, actually, when you see the keep control get all so namespaces, it displays whatever is created and can be visible to the outside. If you want to see the config map, okay, you have to use keep control get config map, okay, hyphen namespace equal to dev. See, the config map 30 minutes ago it's created, right? Similarly for keep control get secret hyphen namespace equal to div. See, the db secret also created. Now our project has been set up, right? So I hope we have created the persistent volume, right? In the persistent volume, I think I didn't show you the volume path, right? Yeah. Okay. So this persistent volume, if you open this persistent volume, I don't think it's created. Let me see. Keep control get pv persistent volume hyphen namespace equal to div. Yeah, it's created 11 minutes ago. Let me tell you about this. Okay, so here the persistent volume kind, yeah, I have created persistent volume plate, but here is I forgot to mention this host path, right? This host path is nothing but your path or your file system or your path in your local machine or in your host where you are running this. That means this path will be mapped to your container or pods path. Whatever the informations will be written or the logs will be generated or the reports will be generated by the container or by the pod, that details will be backed up over this persistent volume. I hope you'll understand now what is this persistent. I'm not going to save it. Yeah, so I hope everything I have created now. Let's see the part. Now we see we created the pods, we created the orchestration, everything. Now it will be coming in your mind, right? How I'll see my applications, right? For that, what you need, you have to get the service and describe it first and get the information to the load balancer in Grace. With that, you can connect to the applications, connect to the pod. Let me show you that. Give control describe, right, service. Now, so let me go to the keep control get services. I forgot like the service name, that's why I want to see the what are the services. Namespace equal to div, right? So this is my service name, right? I want to know what is the IP and what is the host name. Through that I can connect to the application. That's my motto here, right? For that, what I have to do, first you need to know what service it is, because our front end is the Tomcat and this MySQL database is the back end. Through the front end only we can connect to the applications. So get the front end service name here, right? Use the command keep control describe service and the service name. Obviously you have to specify the namespace equal to div. Enter. See, here you can see the information about the, and here you can see the IP of the node and machines, and here is the load balancer ingress. That means it's the local host. Here is the applications and the node hosted in this machine. What I have to do, I need to now go to the web browser. Just open the web browser, go here, just type http, okay, now localhost, right? What you do, you have to use the port 30,008, okay, and your application name. So this is the application name, login web app, right? Once you put enter, okay, see here the application is opened. This is the application login page. Okay, now our Tomcat web pod is running. Okay, so if you go to the pod and see, there will be two pods of Tomcat web, because of we use replicas as two pods are running. Right now, if you go to this application front login page, just give your name, just try to log in with the first initial username and password, and let's see what's happening. Okay, now this actually correct, because we don't have user ID and password registered. For that, what we have to do, we have to register ourselves first, right? For new user, we can register here. Just give your name. Okay, Ranjit, it's fine. I give my name and my email ID, Ranjit, and keep the password. Submit. Boom, it's now registration completed, right? Registration is successful. Let me log into the page. Right here, user ID is, username is Ranjit, and the password, keep your password and login. See the version in our initial video, the part 1, during the continuous integration building process, the developer had given a version of 1.7. Same version is reflected over here. That means we pulled the latest build number. If you remember, the build number is 11. So that build number is 11, and our tag is also 11, right? So if you go here, if you can go to this buff, okay, and if you go to this tags, see the tag number is 11. So this is the latest tag. This latest tag is having the version, the code 1.7. If you want to run a newer version, or if previous version of your application, or if you want to previous application, create a new pod of your previous application, so what you have to do, simply you have to just go to your deployment page, deployment definition file, where you have mentioned the image details, right? Image name. Just open it, go to the image. See, so here, if you see here, we have mentioned the login by web colon tag name, tag number is 11. Okay, so this is the 11 tag. If you want to run for the previous versions or previous tag, so you can mention the tag number here, 9, 8 or 10, whatever you want. Similarly, if your new versions comes, you have to modify it here and create the new deployment or apply it again. So there is a different rollback, roll update, recreate options are there. Okay, now we can see our applications are up and running. Right now, our complete Kubernetes project is done, starting from code development to code pushing into the code, source code management, so the remote repository, and then to the Jenkins, and Jenkins build all these. Here you can see the image, right? This is the image. I have complete image. I have given it here. Developers the code here to the GitHub or Bitbucket, whatever. Jenkins get it and build the project. The Docker file creates the binary artifacts. The artifacts could be your war file, YAR file, or jar file, whatever you're based on your project requirement, with the image files, and that's being stored over here. I have stored everything is in GitHub, sorry, in dockerhub registry. From there, okay, I have used the Kubernetes, enjoyed this project starting from development to deployment. Okay, so thank you guys for watching the videos, and please do subscribe and like it. For new videos or new topics, I'll come up in near future. Whenever I get time, I'll try creating few videos on automations using various tools. Till then, bye.